Hi, everybody. My name is Veronica Hernandez. I am a BCBA here at Cole Academy in our spring location. Today, we will be discussing about specific feeding strategies in order for your kiddo to increase their food palate. So I'm super excited to present on this because I love food and I just want everyone to experience the love of food as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so increasing food variety and appropriate behavior. So we'll discuss about the importance of eating a variety of foods, how to select the foods, and the amount of consumption we should be eating or our kids should be eating, what to expect when we are implementing these feeding strategies. The specific strategies will be how to modify foods, identifying, the first steps. There are specific reinforcers and the participation of specific activities that we can do every day to increase those motor awarenesses. Then we will be discussing an overall helpful tips on how to achieve those feeding goals. So why is it important? We want to make sure our kiddos are developing a healthy diet, they're eating something nutritious. We will be developing those social relationships, having conversations with our peers, with our families at the dinner table. And, it also increases the quality of life for the entire family. Mom doesn't have to be cooking or dad doesn't have to be cooking multiple foods for the entire family, right? So what would you do first? You always want to rule out any possible medical issues, such as any allergies, maybe they're lactose intolerant or allergic to strawberries, or they could also have difficulties with swallowing or chewing or anything, other medical problems uh, that we need to be aware of. Next, we would be selecting appropriate foods to target. So you want to make sure you identify the foods that they currently eat or what they would prefer to eat, right? Then afterwards, you want to identify the foods that you want to target, right? Whether if it's oranges that you work on or increase, carrots, whatever it is, you want to make sure they are part of your current family meals. We don't want to work into eating a specific food, for example, liver, when we typically don't eat liver in our family um, meals, right? So you want to make sure it's something that you currently eat together as a family and it's realistic, a realistic goal. Next, you would identify their favorite foods and toys or activities. So with this, you want to make sure you save this only for preferred item, for eating non-preferred items. You'll be using them as reinforcements. Next, you want to schedule a specific time frame. That way you're not interrupted. You can focus on just eating. You want to make sure you're consistent and be focused and not being rushed into it as well. What to expect when when you start using these feeding strategies. Make sure you are aware that there will be challenging behaviors, especially for the first few times. They're going to be eating something that they're not comfortable with or don't want. So you want to make sure it is expected that there will be somewhat of a challenging behavior. You are going to be feeling like if you wanted to give up or give in to whatever behaviors they are. You've tried, let's say, for 2 days and it's so hard already, or, a month goes by and they want the cookie and you give in to that cookie, right? You will be feeling that way at times. You'll also likely to have some pushback and you're going to want some professional help, right? That's like our last resort at that point. So you want to start creating a plan and making sure you're following it. Again, that's with being consistent. Write down step by step what you'll be doing. It'll be super helpful. It'll keep you focused. And you want to also be prepared and gather all the food items, all the necessary items such as utensils, napkins, um, any other items that you will be needing, as well as the reinforcements. You also want to be limiting their snack intake or any other access to those preferred activities or items. That way they become more motivated to earn those valuable items. You also want to let them know their expectations. You want to be very clear about what they'll be doing and what's expected of them to do. Now, on this slide, we'll be talking a little bit about the difference between picky eaters versus problem eaters. So picky eaters are kiddos who typically refuse to eat or eat the same food consistently. They always want to eat chicken nuggets, right? They will at least probably eat one food item from different food groups and from the food pyramid here on the top right corner. They will also be able to at least tolerate those new foods on their plate. Problem eaters, on the other hand, they have like a sensory aversion to a variety of foods. It could be their texture, the way it feels, the way they taste or smell. All of those can cause those sensory aversions. And sometimes they may have an oral motor deficit as well. And speech pathologists are also able to assist with feeding strategies as well. And I believe occupational therapist. So what are some strategies to success for those picky eaters? Providing choices, allowing them to choose for themselves what food items they want to eat. Maybe even also choose what they can be using as a reinforcer. What do they want to work for? What do they want as a reward after they eat that non-preferred food item? You want to create more value in those rewards. Again, limiting their snack intake or those specific preferred activities. Save those only during mealtime. Again, the more valuable they are, the more motivation they'll be willing to do to eat that non-preferred food item. And as soon as they have that successful bite or eat the required amount that you set, immediately provide that reinforcement. Let them know they're doing a great job. Making a positive and fun experience. Making them participate in preparing the meals with you if that's possible. If not, use lots of colors, create playful plates. You see a lot of pictures where the pancakes are in like silly faces in the restaurants, or like in the picture here on the right, they're different fun shapes. I personally have a few cookie cutters that I cut my daughter's sandwiches, and that motivates her to eat the entire sandwich. So things like that. You also can modify foods, so combining non-preferred foods with their preferred food items. You can also use stimulus fading, which is gradually increasing exposure to food or the rate of those non-preferred food items that they can eat. So here you have the example of stimulus fading. So we know lots of kids love juice, right? And we eventually want them to start drinking only water. So we slowly start diluting the juice with the water. And it takes some time, so little by little you'll just add more water and reduce that juice, and eventually they'll start drinking only water. Or, let's say they love cheese, their preferred food item is cheese, they can eat cheese with everything, and you want them to start eating more vegetables, so you can start off with broccoli, add a lot of cheese, and slowly you'll start reducing the amount of cheese and increase the broccoli, as you see in this picture, and eventually they'll start eating only broccoli without the cheese. And there's only 3 steps here, but the steps can be however you want. It could take as many as you want, as long as they're being successful and they're getting rewarded. And, each time you start fading out that specific preferred food item that's combined, and eventually ending towards your end goal. So now we have strategies to success for are problem eaters. So we can use a shaping procedure, which is reinforcing any successful approximation towards your end goal. So you can use it as increasing a specific amount of bites. You also, during that time, want to make sure to withhold that high reinforcing item when increasing those expectations for those non-preferred food items. And we'll see an example in just a moment. You can use food chaining. That means just presenting new foods that may be similar in either the taste, the temperature, or any textures to the foods that they currently already like and eat. Again, providing that immediate reinforcement. Every time they eat that expected amount of food, immediately provide them with that high preferred reward, whether it's another edible or an activity, things like that. You can also have them participate in those motor activities. So examples that you can probably see on like Pinterest, I've seen is, blowing bubbles or blowing the pom-poms with a straw, scooping beans or rice during like pretend play or in the sensory bins. It kind of gives them that motion to scoop like they would when they're eating soup or anything similar. Or you can even use painting with a variety of those foods, whether it's potatoes or I think on Pinterest I've seen like coconut, a variety of foods that you can make it super fun. So here are the examples. So the steps for introducing a new food to those with those sensory aversions, our first step would be to tolerate, right? You need to be able to tolerate new foods being in the room or even on the table in front of them, having them interact with the food item. It could be with a feeding utensil or helping prepare the specific food item or even putting it on the plate. Having them smell, having them tolerate that new food smell inside the room or on the table. Next step would be touching it. So they could be with their finger, with their tongue, lips, or teeth. The next step would be tasting, them being able to lick, maybe even chew and then spit it out, and swallowing that new food item. And the last step would be for them to eat it. We want to make sure they're able to eat it with minimal to no aversions. So the specific example would be having them to eat blueberries. So you can go from cookies to blueberries, right? Their preferred food item is a chocolate chip cookie. Then you can use those chocolate chips into a granola bar with the oatmeal or granola. Next, you can mix in yogurt with the granola and the chocolate chips. From there, you can have them eat the yogurt with the granola and then the blueberries only, and eventually fading out to just eating plain blueberries. Another example here is the pizza to tomatoes. So you start off with cheese pizza, and next you'll add thin sliced tomatoes. From there, you'll add a lot more tomatoes or even thicker slices, and then from there, they'll eventually start eating just plain tomatoes. Here's a few steps of shaping. So again, with each step here, you will withhold the reinforcement from the previous one and provide reinforcement for the next step. So let's say we want to work on eating oranges. You have the oranges exposed to them on the table. They're able to tolerate it. They're okay. Once they do that a few times without any problem behavior, and you've already reinforced, now you want to move on to the next step. So you withhold the reinforcement, and you only reinforce when they start touching the orange with their finger, and then maybe from there they get comfortable and you want to have them touch it to their lips and reinforce only when they touch to the lips, but withholding touching with the finger or even the exposure. And then you'll have them reinforce licking the orange, and once they start licking without any problem behavior, have them bite the orange, and after that chew the orange 1 or 2 times, then spit it out, reinforcing that immediately. withhold from everything previously, and the next step would eventually be eating it and swallowing the orange, right? That would be the end goal, and immediately provide that reinforcer. Another example, if you want to work on utensils, having them hold a spoon, first you will need to have the kiddo pick up the spoon. Next, you will need to put the spoon in the bowl. Next, you need to scoop the food into the spoon. Next, you need to lift the spoonful out of the bowl. And finally, you need to put the spoon into your mouth from there and start eating it. And again, you always want to encourage throughout the entire time, reinforce all these movements as they go. So just a quick overview, some helpful tips to remember is, again, you always want to remember and identify what you want to work on, right? What food items you want to increase, what do they currently eat right now and able to eat. Next, you want to make sure you identify what is it that they're willing to do for a reward, right? What are they willing to eat? What are they willing to earn in order to eat that non-preferred food item? We want to make sure the valuable is still there so they can be motivated to eat that non-preferred food item. Again, you want to make sure the quality is also good. You don't want to give them stale chips, right? Next, you want to start where they'll be successful at, right? You want to make sure you praise them for doing such a good job at tolerating, right? If that's the first step, then that's the first step you need to do, and then making a clear expectation. Okay, now you have to touch the food, right? Withhold that reinforcement whenever they're able to tolerate it, but now you'll deliver the reinforcer when they have to touch it. So that brings up the next one. Deliver reinforcer when the expected target behavior is completed. Again, you also want to remain consistent and knowing it will take some time and patience. This can't be done in a day, a week, a month. Everybody learns differently. And so we just want to make sure we are able to take the time to focus and be consistent. Consistency is the key. If you feel like you're burning out, maybe have your partner or anybody else that's able to help and kind of assist with providing those feeding strategies as well. And here are a few resources from the information on the PowerPoint. And thank you so much. I appreciate you watching.